Hello, welcome to the 2023 Inside the Birds Fantasy Football Preview Special. I'm Geoff Mosher with Adam Caplan. Of course, we're joined by InsideTheBirds.com's Andrew DiCecco. This is part three of our three-part series. We have done quarterbacks, we've done running backs, and this episode will be focused on wide receivers and tight ends, some of the real money makers now in fantasy football. Of course, the preview special here is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Fellas, it is 2023. If you go back to 2013, you're not having ever a discussion about a wide receiver as the number one overall pick in all of fantasy football. But here we are 10 years later, and the wide receiver, you could argue, is maybe the highest, outside of quarterback, highest scoring position and most targeted in the first round position in fantasy football these days. So let's talk about that, because as we all look at the top five in fantasy football wide receiver / tight ends, the name Justin Jefferson is a very hot commodity at 1.01. Adam, is he your 1.01 if you had the first pick in any kind of draft?
Most likely, but I would tell you, and always look at this. If I go with Jefferson at 1, when I come back at the end of the second round, that's the next time I'll pick. What kind of running back am I going to get? Because the kick, if I don't want Joe Mixon as my first back. I don't want to be in that position because you just have to get a feel for what. That's why I like doing some mock drafts before I draft, because I want to get an idea at the end of the second round, around 24. Okay, who might be there? Would I be okay with Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Taylor? If I am, I'm absolutely going with Jefferson.
Right. So would you then, Andrew, based on what Adam said, if you're in a 10-team league, you're probably okay, really okay, taking Justin Jefferson number one overall. There's fewer people in your league, and you'll probably get a better running back on the way around. If you're in a 12 to 14-team league, as I am, I think Jefferson's still a very good consideration for 101. But as Adam is saying, do you maybe kind of do the mental gymnastics there and look at somebody else?
I always do. I check out the sleeper app. I draft from every possible position. Doing that at 1, as Adam said, you may find a Tony Pollard on the back end. But if you go running back, you go Christian McCaffrey, you can certainly find a player like a Chris Olave or Devontae Smith, depending on how high you are on them. They should be available to you as well.
All right. Well, all three of us sort of in agreement on who the top 3 wide receivers are for fantasy football in some form or fashion. You have Jefferson, you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jamar Chase. I believe Adam and I feel that Tyreek Hill would be the number 2 guy. Andrew, you had him at 3 with Jamar Chase at number 2. I've compared these guys' stats a lot. I've figured the offense that they're in, and for me, and I'll get to you the second guys in a second. For me, I just can't find a reason yet to drop Tyreek Hill out of number 2. I mean, he's proven away from Patrick Mahomes, and even with an injured Tua, who's had to have other quarterbacks step in, that he is as consistent as it gets as far as being a target monster, a deep threat monster, a producer. Would I love him to find the end zone just a little bit more? Yeah, but I mean, you could say the same for pretty much every wide receiver who's not getting 10 to 11 touchdowns. So, Andrew, what is it that made you sort of go with Jamar Chase at number 2, which is, by the way, not out of the ordinary, but what was your decision for that?
Well, I like their offense. I think that's a high-flying offense that I'm projecting the Bengals to be one of the top teams in the league this year, and I think he's going to lead that aerial attack. I'm also projecting a really big season from Jalen Waddle. I think that's going to eat into the targets a little bit. Then you also have to take into account Tua's health and then his long-term viability this season, which could sort of hinder his production.
Sure. Adam, how wide do you think, after the top 3, Jefferson, Hill, Chase, is there too much of a gulf between whoever's 4 and 5? I think we're all in that Stephon Diggs, CD Lamb kind of category there.
Yeah, the issue with Cooper Kupp, when he plays, he's phenomenal.
Right.
The problem is he's now 30 years old. Talking to players over the years, it's 30 or 31 is when they lose their legs a little bit. They're just not as explosive. Kupp has had 3 significant injuries in his career, starting with the ACL some years ago. You wonder at some point. Now, the good thing about Kupp is he's getting Stafford back. That's huge. Does he have one big year left in him? Probably so. But, I try to eliminate when I'm picking early as many issues or obstacles, because I know what I'm getting with Diggs. I'm on Ross St. Brown's my guy. I was He was one of my breakout players last season. He does get hurt. He's smaller because you talk about the line. Like, where's the drop off? It's somewhere around the 4th or 5th receiver. There's going to be a drop off. I love CeeDee Lamb, by the way. He was another breakout guy for me last season. But now it's got to deal with Brandon Cooks. There seems to be, after that top 4, there's a drop off. There seems to be some issue with each receiver. And AJ Brown, by the way, should be in the conversation.
Sure.
AJ Brown didn't miss time last season. Do you trust AJ Brown's knees? There was a reason why Tennessee traded him. The Eagles look like geniuses now, but can he do it another year in a row?
Yeah, I actually personally love Diggs and Lamb 4-5 over Cup for the reasons you mentioned. Cup coming off the injury, that offense for the Rams, you worry about it a little bit. The offensive line not so good. Now they're going to be down a lot. They will have to pass a lot. So I do expect Cup to still be a target monster and a receptions monster. But from a overall production monster, I think the addition of Brandon Cooks is going to help an interior wideout, movable wideout like CeeDee Lamb really just get all those yards across the middle where he's famous. He's so good at taking the ball, catching it, making more yards after catch. He's just ready to become a fantasy giant, I think. So I'm a big CeeDee Lamb guy in fantasy football this year. So the last questions, because we're also talking about tight ends here and folding them in, there are times where a tight end, right, might be a more productive player than a receiver. We've also reached that in 2023. Travis Kelce is all of our number 1 tight ends. Is he good enough to unseat any of those 3 or 4 guys? Would you take Travis Kelce over a CeeDee Lamb? Would you take Travis Kelce over a Cup? Would you take him over a Diggs, Stephon Diggs? Anybody?
Depends on the scoring. He has been age defiant. He turns 34, Kelce does.
Had his best year last year, Adam.
I know. That's, John Hanson and I on our fantasy show on Sirius XM. We keep talking about that. We typically are ageist, as John came up with that term, but I'm willing to make an exception. This guy's special. No one could handle him. He plays a scramble drill really well with Mahomes. He knows to come back to the football. He's just incredible. Now, would I draft him over? I wouldn't draft him over Jefferson, Hill, Chase. Would I draft him over Diggs? Now, first of all, are you in a 1 tight end league? PPR, I would definitely consider it. You understand the ramifications if you draft a tight end in the 2nd round. You draft a receiver in the 1st round. You're running back. You could be having you. You don't want Joe Mixon as your first back. Trust me on that. You have to look at it. Okay, who's going to be my first back? That's the problem about doing something like that.
100%. And to your point, Adam, in my own personal top 5 pass catching rankings, I do have Kelce at number 4 behind those 3 that you mentioned and 1 ahead of Diggs. Although I would have no argument, Andrew, if somebody had Diggs ahead of Kelce. He's still one of the best route runners in the game, one of the most high target, high production guys that you're going to see in the game. Where would you have Travis Kelce?
I mean, if you're picking anywhere in the middle of that 1st round, I think you have to heavily consider that. I mean, I'm with Adam. If it's Cooper Kupp or Travis Kelce's on the board, I'm probably leaning towards Travis Kelce. There's a big drop off. There's less unknown qualities there. So I'm definitely going Travis Kelce. And I know a lot of people that do. I play in PPR league, so that's certainly something that I'll be considering.
All right, let's move on from our top 5 and we'll get into some sleepers, some guys that are in decline, and of course some breakout players, right, at both wide receiver and tight end. Andrew, give me a breakout wide receiver this year.
Well, I was going to say Jerry Jeudy, but he's got a significant hamstring injury. He's going to miss several weeks.
Yes, he's broken.
Chris Olave is a player that had 119 targets last year. I'm really high on him, enough so that if I have the opportunity, I consider even reaching for him. I think that he's really going to ascend and be a clear-cut top receiver. If you decide to go running back, I also, if you want to go deep sleepers, I would say Rashid Shaheed, John Mechie with the Texans, Isaiah Hodgins. Those are guys you can get probably later in one of your final picks. But I think if for a household name, I would say Chris Olave.
All right, Chris Olave. You're buying the Derek Carr juice there in New Orleans. That's good. All right. Hey, probably better than what they had going on last year. Adam, give me one of your breakout candidates in 2023.
I'm going to give you 3 quickly. Gabe Davis. Don't have the fantasy grudge on him, folks. Yes, he sucked last season. He did have touchdowns, though. I think it's 7. But he suffered a high ankle sprain prior to the week 2 game. He kept playing on it. He never was right physically. So he's dropped in drafts where he's going to 3rd round last year. He's going late 6, early 7. He's a great value there. He's going to break out. He's going to have a big season. Oh, it's also a contract year for him. George Pickens. flash as a rookie, inconsistent. He had a phenomenal camp, one of the best camps of any receiver in the National Football League. He's going to break out. And Garrett Wilson, very good rookie season, offensive rookie of the year because Breece Hall got hurt. This is his breakout season. So those would be my three receivers: Davis, Pickens, and Wilson at the receiver position.
I think you just brought up a really good point. I want our listeners to understand that don't take anything personal in fantasy football. This happened to me, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. A guy I drafted did not have a good year. I held a grudge against it. I thought maybe he was done. The next year he came back and was phenomenal. Sometimes you just have to examine the circumstances. So the guy you said, Gabe Davis, who was a deep threat. I mean, he kind of started off like a house of fire last year for the Bills, was giving him a lot of deep touchdowns that he fizzled off a little bit, but it's still a great offense, still a great quarterback, and he is the number 2 on that team. And in some cases, the number 1 deep threat. So I like the idea of not holding a grudge there. Good stuff on that. George Pickens for me, guys, is the guy. Maybe I'm a little too enticed by what I've seen in the preseason, but I believe in the Steelers offense more. Talk about not holding a grudge. I targeted Pickens and Deontay Johnson early last year. Obviously, the Steelers had a terrible year, but I'm very fond of both of these wide receivers this year. The Steelers have a better offensive line. I think they're going to get to act there together with their offensive coordinator, Kenny Pickett, year 2. So I would go out and try to get myself George Pickens because I think he's on the precipice of really quickly becoming one of these league's top 10 wide receivers, and it could be this year. So that would be one of my guys that I'm focusing on as a breakout candidate. Let's talk about the guys going the other way. Receiver and let's get tight end in the mix too. Andrew, a receiver and a tight end that you're maybe thinking people are a little bit too in love with right now.
DK Metcalf is a player for a wide receiver that I'm kind of avoiding. He's going right around where you would see a Deebo Samuel go. If I have the option, I'm taking Deebo. Steadily declined the last 3 seasons, DK, and I'm not crazy on that offense this year. I have a hard time believing that Geno Smith's going to replicate his success, and I think they're going to be a run-heavy team. I obviously have adding Zach Charbonnet in the draft to pair with Kenneth Walker, and then tight end George Kittle. He's been banged up in the past, and there's just so many weapons there that I just don't know that he's going to be who the offense is going to go through. So I anticipate volatile production from him week in and week out.
Good one. Okay. I mean, Kittle is one of those most tantalizing guys. He's healthy. He's on the field, even with weapons he produces, but how often does he stay healthy? It's a real roll of the dice there.
Yeah.
I definitely understand that one. Adam, who are some receivers and tight ends that you think are going a little too high right now?
Well, it's not really that high. It's just the guys I just don't think are going to do well.
Okay,
Michael
decline,
Gallup,
yeah.
Michael Gallup, who was their ex-receiver for his ACL injury. I would have felt better about him this season, but when the Cowboys made the trade for Brandon Cooks, it's over. There's just what you can take a pay cut, Gallup. Forget it. And tight end, Dawson Knox has been a fantasy tease, but now that they have Dalton Kincaid, forget it. I'd move on, and I just don't see it.
All right, good stuff. I'm a little concerned on DJ Moore, who has just he's always been good, but not great. And I think people are now expecting a bigger upturn from him because he's with a strong-armed quarterback in Justin Fields, but I'm not 100% proven or convinced, I should say, that the Bears passing game is going to take a major step forward. So I'm avoiding DJ Moore. I think right now he's going as the last I checked, Adam, I don't know if you have it in front of you. He's like the 19th wide receiver, DJ Moore.
DJ Moore right now is going, he's depending with the rankings, but he's ADP is kind of early 4th round. Look, he's had a phenomenal camp. He's got good chemistry with the quarterback. The quarterback, though, Fields, you just worry about the accuracy. That inaccurate quarterbacks always cap a receiver's upside. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. The guy's inaccurate, has real problems with accuracy. The guy's numbers won't be able to max out. Yeah, Moore's a little bit overvalued. I do like him, but I'm worried about Fields and the accuracy.
There you go. One guy on tight end. Well, I'm gonna give you 2 names. One, I know TJ Hawkinson's a very good player, and now he's on the Minnesota offense, and so theoretically, I guess he's ready to really put up huge numbers. But I'm not sure. I've seen him go as early as the 3rd tight end taken behind Kelce and Andrews, and I still think that's a little high. I still like guys. I like Darren Waller to have a pretty good year. I love Dallas Goedert over TJ Hawkinson. Kittle, when healthy, to me, Andrew is still a guy. And I think Kyle Pitts with a different quarterback now is going to go back to being what he was as a rookie. So I'm just a little iffy on TJ Hawkinson being a top 3 tight end. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I like Darren. I'm Darren Waller all the way for a top 3 tight end. He's just been the go-to guy in Giants camp. I think he's a movable piece, and he's going to be a red zone weapon for them. I think that the offense is going to go through him when you don't see an alpha in their receiving core right now. So
Awesome. All right, let's talk about some sleepers before we wrap this up. Adam, give me some sleepers, some late round guys you would love to take a flyer on.
All right. We'll do receivers and tight ends. Sky Moore, I know he sucked last season. I get it. I missed on that one. But I was out early. Once I saw the light, he used to struggle. I cut him in all the league. I drafted him like every league I was in, all 6. Now, a guy who got off to a great start, then had a high ankle sprain, is Romeo Doubs of the Packers. He's got very good chemistry with Jordan Love. Love Moore. Sky Moore is also good value. And then Cortland Sutton, I know he's struggled the last 2 seasons coming off the ACL. He's healthy. You mentioned Jerry Jeudy. Sutton's probably going to be the #1 pass target. Elijah Moore, I know the Browns are in love with. They love him there in that offense. He'll run the ball too. And then at tight end, sleepers, you can get him as a value. Gerald Everett, because they're going to throw the ball more, and they're going to throw the ball. He's a vertical tight end. Greg Dulcich now, with the injuries that they have at receiver for the Broncos, so his role should grow. And Juwan Johnson, former Penn State receiver, he signed an extension, $6 million a year. He's very athletic. He scored a lot of touchdowns last season. I expect his role to grow here with the Saints.
Awesome. Andrew, who are some guys in the late rounds you would love to take a flyer on?
I mentioned Rashid Shaheed from the Saints. I like the Saints passing options. You'll see that in a second. John Mechie, Isaiah Hodgins. I'll give you another one. Justin Ross with the Chiefs. I think that he's had a nice camp. Rashid Rice as well for the Chiefs. Tight end, Chico Okonkwo, I believe is his name with the Titans. He's not a really long player. He's built compact. He kind of is like a running back after the catch. I think that he's really athletic. He runs a 4.5. They don't have a ton of passing options there in Tennessee. I like what he can bring to the table. Adam mentioned Juwan Johnson. He had 7 touchdowns last season. I think that he's a player that could be a really nice, especially if you want to grab a second tight end if you don't get one of the premier guys. And Sam Laporta from the Lions as well.
Nice, Sam Laporta. Always good to get an Iowa tight end on your fantasy football team. Yeah, definitely. Listen, you guys talked about those Chiefs receivers. If I'm there late, right, and he's still on the board, I know he's hurt all the time, but there is major upside if you get Kadarius Toney and he's sitting as one of the last guys on your bench, because if he's healthy, you got to have him in your lineup. He's going to produce. I do believe Kadarius Toney is someone late that I would look for. And also, Arizona's offense, somebody's got to catch the ball there. Somebody has to catch the ball. If you're in a PPR league, I think a guy like Rondale Moore, this year was year 3 for Rondale Moore. Pretty good to get 6, 7, 8 catches a game. They're going to be behind, I think, in nearly every game they play. And with their backup quarterback situation, might be a little bit more of an accurate thrower or a better decision maker with the ball. We'll see. But Rondale Moore's got to catch passes. And I look at everybody else on the team. Hollywood Brown is more of a deep threat, I would say. So he's probably going to go a little bit higher. We know they had Greg Dortch catch some passes last year, right? But Dortch, I think Rondale Moore can give you some pretty good production just on volume. We talked about volume with the running backs, right? They may not be great, but they're going to get force-fed a lot of touches. That's where I'm looking at Rondale Moore.
They're going to be behind in a lot of games.
That's my point.
I'd be shocked if they're not the NFL Torch team.
I agree with you on that. So always good there. All right, that has been our wrap-up of running backs and tight ends on the Inside the Birds 2023. I'm sorry, wide receivers, tight ends on the Inside the Birds 2023 Fantasy Football Preview Special. All of our stories, all of our videos in the past and this are on YouTube. And then coming up in the ensuing week, I will have all of this podcasted on the Inside the Birds platform. So for Andrew DiCecco and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Thanks everybody for watching.